And we are back with yet another Shacknews Game of the Year 2022 deliberation. This time we are going to be deliberating and nominating and voting and selecting the best first-person shooter, otherwise known as FPS game of the year. And man, oh man, there were some really good ones this year. There were some questionable ones, but I'm going to start this off because I have a real passion for this game. I love it so much. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Fantastic first-person shooter game. Look, I love the Borderlands series. I love looter shooters. And I also love Dungeons and Dragons. And this was an incredible blending of the two genres. I'd honestly never thought about how a Borderlands skill tree would lend itself so well to a Dungeons and Dragons style game. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, there's so many skill trees that are so similar, but like I never made the correlation for some reason. But then they add the same stuff, the stat building aspects to it, like of leveling up your character, creating a dual class system. So once you reach a certain level in Wonderlands, you're allowed to add another class to make like something like completely unique along with your first class. Obviously there's some limit on combinations, but there's multiple choices for character classes. Like I think there's 6 now overall in total. So that's a lot of things you can combine. And yeah, just an incredible voice cast as well. And I think what's most important is that the game's actually fun to play, right? Like a lot of creature variations, a lot of medieval takes on Borderlands enemies, a lot of new and unique creature classes that are very much more D&D centric, like Cyclopses and undead warriors, things like that. Just like adding in things like booby traps, the kind of mimic treasure chests, things like that you would see in a D&D game. It just was a perfect mashup of like both styles to me. I really, really dig it. And then the weapons are ridiculous, as always, like they are in every Borderlands game. But now a lot of them had a magical, mystical component to them. Well, there you go. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. That's my nomination, and is one I'm very passionate.
I will get my nomination out of the way because no one will agree with me. So let's just rip that Band-Aid off. But I am nominating Rainbow Six Extraction, partly because, I know there were a lot of shooters, but I didn't play a lot of shooters this year. But I did play that one pretty extensively. And my entire argument is that even though it's not Siege, it actually plays in terms of the gunplay, in terms of the feel, in terms of the movement. It plays like Rainbow Six Siege in the sense that obviously they're very closely related to one another. So if you enjoy the way that the gunplay is in Rainbow Six Siege, you probably wouldn't mind the gunplay in Rainbow Six Extraction. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was really tight. It was really smooth. And in terms of first-person shooters, there was nothing else that I played this year that I enjoyed as much as Extraction.
I'm intimately familiar with Siege, and I regularly write the season previews for Shacknews. And I can tell you that Extraction is basically a PvE Siege. It is a lot of those operators, but you put them in an environment where you're fighting aliens. And it's actually pretty cool. It's like as a single player game, it's junk. Like I wouldn't recommend it at all. But if you got friends, it's a good time. I really liked it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm just very specifically talking about the gunplay, right? Like, in terms of just judging the gunplay from a first-person perspective, I loved it. I thought it felt really
good. Because they're still going with that Siege kind of like the gunplay and the physics. Like that physics engine that like has helped Siege go on for like 8 years and running Like they've successfully transitioned that to a PvE setting, and I really think I think it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's very important to me how much they nailed down the tactical gameplay of that game too. Because if you just run around shooting in that game, you're gonna alert everything to your presence, and everything will go so wrong so fast it'll make your head spin.
TJ, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're myself and Jan, who does our streaming on Thursday with Shack Air, weren't we protecting you while you were literally like pulling an operator out of like some alien vine or something like that?
Yeah, you have to coordinate with each other so much, like, and communicate and ping and make sure that you know where the objectives are and relay information to each other, which are all very Rainbow Six things. And I think that they translated that so incredibly well to Extraction. That said, Extraction was like my number 2 pick, and the reason it was my number 2 pick is because another one took my stole my heart this year as far as first person shooters, and I know David's with me on this one.
Absolutely. Blake, may I approach the bench?
I'll allow it.
Okay, thank you, Blake. Have you ever heard of a game called Doom?
Doom? Sounds
Doom.
familiar.
I've heard of Rocket Jump.
I've heard of Rocket Jump as well. Blake, is Doom eligible this year?
No, Doom came out several years ago. I thought you would know that, David.
Okay, well, I think it's unjust. But in lieu of that, I would like to tell you about a game called Proteus, which is a game I mentioned. Was that last year? I think it was last year during our deliberations.
It
It's
was your pick for early access game.
It sure was. I remember during that we all like opened the video I linked and we're like, oh, this looks pretty good. And Proteus has shaped up rather well, as TJ can attest to. This is a retro style shooter with a little bit of Doom. I think that the HUD gives me some kind of Metroid vibe, Metroid Prime vibes, vibe primes maybe. And it feels good. All the guns feel great when you fire them. Really stylized enemies, locations, and effects. Movement feels great. Exploration feels great. I love this game. If it would have been released as a 1.0 game, I definitely would have nominated it last year. But this year, TJ and I are very happy because we can finally sing its praises.
Best shotgun I've felt in a game in a long time. It's just a shotgun at first, but then the alternate fire lets you charge it, like spin it up, and just destroy everything on the other end of the barrel. It's the weapons in that game are like, they're good. They have their staples, but like the alternate fire they have on some of them just makes them so fun and so satisfying. The railgun. The railgun is, you just like feel like you're punching a hole through something at any distance in the most visceral fashion.
They just have to feel good to fire, but I think you made an especially good point about the shotgun. Like the shotgun is the kind of the beating, pumping heart of an FPS. If you don't have a good shotgun, you may not have a good FPS, and Proteus's shotgun is just a delight.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Let's see. Well, there's 3 nominations so far. Do we have any other nomination?
Yeah. I wrote down Overwatch 2, and I'll tell you why I did that.
Hang on, I'm gonna need to take a seat for this one.
All
right, here we go.
All
I
right,
understand
Mike.
we are not.
Get my gavel ready.
We're not the fondest of the Overwatch franchise here at Shacknews. But damn it, I love that game in 2016. It's still my 2016 game of the year, and Overwatch 2 is an improvement. I think that the change to 5-on-5 was actually good. I think the new characters are really good. Sojourn, Kiriko, great for a team comp. And you know what? For about the month that that game came out, in October, November, it was like 2016 all over again. Me and my friends were playing it almost every night. Great times. I think we would be remiss not to mention it.
So it was fun for about a month.
Yeah. Where is it now?
Is that what you're saying?
Other things. Well, other things come up. Pokemon came out. I had my attention got pulled.
It's fair.
Different
The
direction.
moment of the deliberation so far is when Ozzy nearly choked on his water as you were trying to get through that, Donovan. Like his eyes lit up and he was like,
No, I think the biggest problem with Overwatch 2, and David will agree with this, and David will agree with me on this, is that it feels like a third of a game because it is. Because they took one mode that worked
might be
and they
true.
just focused on that. And they left out, and story mode's coming in 2025. You know, like it's still not there.
Hey,
And so they
Promises
just have to
made,
focus.
promises not kept is the
TJ
slogan
will
for
agree with me on
Overwatch
this.
2.
It's Street
Yeah.
Fighter 5 1.0.
Oh shit.
Man.
Boy.
I think it'll get there,
It's-
Donovan. It's just it's
It's-
taking a long time to get there. That's all.
It's Halo Infinite
yeah, I hope they
all
figure that
over
out.
again.
But I do think that they'll like. I think going into Overwatch 2, I think that all the like feelings going up was like this is about to be like an all-time train wreck of a release for like such a high-profile game. But I think it was actually pretty good for what it's worth. I don't know. Thought it was solid.
This
Not
is
even-
Actually,
It's
pretty
Like
good.
Fender
It is
Bender.
fun. Like I'll
Well,
get down to that. It
there
is
you
a fun
go.
game. It is fun.
I'm not even going to give it the credit of Street Fighter 5 1.0 because Street Fighter 5 1.0 never benched my characters because they broke the game.
You know, here's
That's pretty
here's
much.
my thing with Overwatch 2. I have not played a balanced match at all in Overwatch 2. It's mostly like going in, getting my ass kicked, like literally walking out the door and being killed over and over again. And
but
I
I've
know what
watched
you're
you play
probably saying,
FPS
get
games.
I,
good. What? Wow. I don't know how to take that. Ouch.
You know what? I
Ouch.
have two problems with Overwatch 2. First of all, Donovan, I can understand everything you said, but my two issues with it were that first, this was announced on the platform. Hey, the thing that we were finally missing in the first game, which was a story to go with our story, we're gonna have that. And then they're like, oh, we're gonna
Yeah.
have that eventually. Second, as a historian, Overwatch 2 just completely overwrote Overwatch 1. That game is just kind of gone now, and I just have an issue with that on,
Yeah.
I guess, a preservation level. I don't think there was any need to do that, and I immediately take umbrage with any game that does it, because that's just a piece of history that is gone now. You just can't play it, you know.
And
So I have a big issue with that.
it's force feeding you Overwatch 2. Yeah, and I don't appreciate that either, David. I'm with you on the archival aspect of it, and also just like if people like Overwatch 1 and want to keep
Right.
playing it, like I
Right.
think it's a bad move to take away that option.
Yeah.
You know, I
Very-
mean,
yeah.
some people like are uncomfortable with change or they're happy there. There's a lot of communities that get built up around games, and assuming that that'll all transition over to a sequel, I think is a little brash. But that's just me.
There was one more nomination.
What is our last? Is this our last nomination?
I think it's our last nomination.
Is
If
it
the
Doom?
spreadsheet's telling me that it is. This is going to shock you. It is not Doom.
Wow.
But I
Call of
believe
Duty.
Morgan has a nomination.
Yeah. So I put down Neon White for my nomination. I think that in terms of indies, it's a standout for me this year, but in terms of just the approach to FPS, because I mean, I wasn't sure if it would count at first, but like dabbling back in with it, I think it counts. It's a mixture of like first person shooting with like platforming with like a card system. It's very weird. And I wasn't sure before I started playing it how well it would work, but it works surprisingly well. The levels are all kind of self-contained and you're rushing through them as quickly as you can, which is really satisfying to me. But then in addition, it's like the precision, the speed running elements. I like that it's kind of more, you know, you're beating your own times, or your friends' times. You're not really doing like the traditional like shooting each other kind of thing. Yeah, I just thought it was a really big standout this year. I think it kind of got a little overlooked after it came out. It kind of the conversation around it dropped off, but definitely one of the best indies this year and a standout for me, I think, for first person shooting for sure.
It's also
That's
I
super
love the
small development
speedrunning
team as
element
well,
of
I
it.
believe.
Like it's so novel, and like the idea that they came up with the card system, it took me by surprise, kind of in the way that Fights in Tight Spaces took me by surprise last year. And you know what, I really enjoyed this, and I like the puzzle element of it. I like the design. The narrative left me a little cold, but I do like a lot of what they did with it. So
Yeah, I think the card battling aspect is what's really interesting to me, and I think we're starting to see like card systems sort of work their way into more games like this. But yeah, anytime you add an element like that to an FPS game, it definitely gives it a more unique angle.
Refreshing, right? Like it's trying something a little bit different, and it's giving you a different take on a genre that's been done.
This is a
and
better
sometimes lacks them.
This is a better use of cards in a shooter than we saw from Back 4 Blood last year. Like Back 4 Blood, I felt tacked on. This, it feels organic, and this it feels like it actually does something with the idea.
You have a choice to make with every card. You can either use it as the weapon that it portrays, or it has a unique movement ability based on the card that it is. And I think that's such a cool on-the-fly choice to make in every level with whatever card you have at your disposal.
It's almost like speed chess, right? Like you just have to make the decision without having too much time to think.
Mm-hmm.
And because everything is so quick, if you do end up doing something that you like regret, like restarting the level and like trying it again is so quick, like that you can just do an experiment without feeling like you're losing anything kind of thing. Like I would just experiment with the card and be like, oh, well, that didn't really work. Restart the level. And it's just like very quick and responsive. I really like that. Yeah.
Nice.
Also, we've kind of touched on this, but it's a really. Ozzy mentioned the speedrunning aspect, but this was a game that was very enjoyable for me to watch as well. Like they're really intense, exciting runs. I had a friend who got really into it, and she was just like every playthrough she was increasing her score, and it soon became like a battle of inches. And it was just really fun to kind of root her on. So yeah, that's a great pick.
There you go. There you have it. Well, I think we have laid out all of this year's nominations. So, unless anyone else has anything further to say, I believe it's time that we put things to a vote. What do you say? I wish there was like an explosion and like a guitar right there, but we don't have that.
We'll
Maybe
add
a
it in
tiger
post.
growing. Greg, can you add some explosions?
You
And
want
a
that,
guitar
Greggy?
shred and like a
No.
tiger. Just like a tiger
not with 60
growling.
awards,
No.
I can't. With one video, sure.
Greg's like, we're blowing our game of the year budget, Blake.
Yeah, this is our
Right,
budget.
we'll do it in.
You want this
We'll
one
do it in.
shot,
All
that's
right.
it.
So what I mean, we'll do it in post. That's what I'm hearing.
Feature
All right,
creep.
great.
Feature creep.
All right, I'm going to start with my vote. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. It's so great all around. This completely deserves the W, and that's why Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is getting my vote. And also, I want more Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and I think if we give them the best FPS award, that Gearbox is going to see that and be like, guys, come on. Just come on. That's it. All right. Sam, who are you voting for?
Yeah, Tiny Tina's. I'm with you.
Nice. All
Can
right.
I take
Bill.
my daily come back to me?
All right, you get one come back to you. Morgan, are you sticking with Neon White, or did I convince you that Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is the best?
I'm gonna stick with Neon White.
All right. You gotta stick to your guns. Have the strength of your convictions. I respect that. I appreciate it. Ozzy, Tiny Tina's?
I was thoroughly underwhelmed by Borderlands 3, and having said that, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands really kind of rejuvenated that whole formula. So I'm gonna go Tiny Tina's Wonderlands.
Good choice, Ozzy. Movement. All right, TJ Denzer.
Proteus. No game that has a shotgun that good will ever not get my vote in any of these.
All right, fair enough. I know that you are kind of our shotgun connoisseur here when it comes to games, video games. Let's be clear. I don't know how many shotguns you own in real life. Don't need to bring it up right now. All right, Greg Burke.
Yeah, I mean, like Tiny Tina's. That was a fun aesthetic. Everything about that game was really fun. I enjoyed it.
Beautiful. All right, Donovan, the class clown, the Joker.
I'll go with Neon White.
Oh wow! Look at that. You couldn't even vote for Overwatch 2.
I can't deny a good argument, you know.
All right. All
I
right.
think we set him straight.
All right. Well, good times. Denny, where would you like to put your vote?
I'm gonna go with Tiny Tina's because it's the first real Borderlands I got in with some friends. We had a good time.
Yeah, I actually I played through in 4-player co-op, and I know Asif voted for this too. I played through a lot of this with Asif, and I think that a lot of the things that I liked about it, he liked about it as well, because he's not really a Borderlands guy either, as far as I know. So I think it really struck a chord with a lot of folks. So there we go. David L. Craddock.
Proteus.
Proteus. I would hope you would vote for Proteus. You're very impassioned. You can't vote for Doom, so you're going to give it to Proteus. All right. And Steve.
Tiny Tina's.
Tiny Tina's. Yeah. All right. My man. Sticking with it. All right. And Bill.
You know, I am actually, after all of that drama on my part, I am going to stick with Rainbow Six Extraction. In terms of shooting mechanics, it was the shooter that I enjoyed that came out this year more than the others.
Proteus hadn't floored me. That would have been my choice.
Not the game I enjoyed more than others, but the shooting mechanics I enjoyed more. First person.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I think there are some great nominations here, some amusing ones as well. But overall, it looks like with 7 votes against Overwatch 2, 0 votes, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is taking home the best FPS of 2022 award here at Shack News. The gavel has gavelled.